the program is actually being organized in 5 different European countries. In Ireland, it's being represented by the Association of Ghanaian Professionals in Ireland. And fortunately for us, we have representation from all the 5 countries, the other 4 countries here.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Paula Llobet. I come from Valencia community from Spain. We identified 1 year and a half ago a call for proposal for the Fundamental Rights and Citizenship Program. So this program depends on the general direction of justice, freedom, of security of the European Commission, and in this that immigrants go to the same office that Spanish people go for these issues. So,
and discrimination against third country nationals, national women living in the European countries. That is why we have 5 other partners in 5 different countries.
Bear in mind that I'm not South African. He says, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be here, but he's not, to address the workshop, and he wants to compliment the Association of Ghanaian Professionals in Ireland for putting together such an important programme.
A immigrant representative from the Immigrant Council of Ireland, Mr. Brian Killoran.
Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? I'm delighted to be here this morning, and want to thank the Association of Ghanaian Professionals in Ireland for the invitation to come along. Any opportunity we get to really talk about these issues is really kind of warmly welcomed by us. And it's been a really interesting morning so far, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of the follow-on speeches as well. And then, of course, opening it up to the floor to hear some of your own opinions as well. Maybe to set the scene a little bit, this morning, as everybody saw, it was raining fairly torrentially, so I decided to get a taxi. So just to tell you a little brief story about my wonderful taxi ride. Sometimes I, hesitate when I tell taxi drivers about the kind of work that we do, because unfortunately sometimes taxi drivers in Dublin get a bad reputation, but there are occasionally people that have kind of fairly dodgy attitudes. I told the guy that I was going to a conference on racism and anti-racism, and he kind of looked at me for a second and he went, I'm a racist.
Ghanaian Professionals in Ireland for inviting us here today. I think that, as Brian said, interpersonal relationships between groups, and particularly between groups and the Gardaí, are very important. Unfortunately, I have no funny story to tell you about arriving at my taxi, because I didn't arrive at my taxi. But I was delighted to address the conference, particularly because it was partially about women's issues. I grew up in...
Higgins. Mr. Joe Higgins is a former member of the European Parliament. He is presently a member of Parliament in Ireland. In Ireland, we refer to them as TDs. He's also the leader of the Socialist Party, and he's also the leader in Parliament of the Independent Technical Group of Independent TDs. He's a very, very dear individual to the hearts of all migrants. And if you recall, just a couple of years ago, there was so much exploitation against immigrants working in the construction industry. And it took the effort of one man, Mr. Joe Higgins, to actually stop this exploitation.
Over the last 2 decades or so, on many occasions raised that history of our people to bring home, particularly to Irish people with bad attitudes towards people who come from different countries in our society, to remind them that they have relatives and neighbours, etc., who have gone to seek refuge and jobs and a new home in other countries. Racism does traditionally raise its head in times of recession, when unscrupulous politicians of the right-wing variety, for example, can scapegoat migrants in relation to mass unemployment and in relation to other issues. Now, even in the last 20 years here, before this particular catastrophe in the economy at the present time, we've had some politicians from some of the establishment parties who just, in a most disgusting way, try to scapegoat people seeking asylum, people of different origins in our country. We had to challenge that at the time.
I happened to be in UK about 2 years ago, and I was in an Asian shop when a fight broke between two Asians, and one of them was saying, you wait and see, I'll let you be deported because you don't have papers to work here. About 15 minutes later, the police there came over, and then the man who actually called the police, the one who said he was going to report him, he was outside, so the police just bypassed him. They didn't know he was the one who called. When he saw them, he followed. Oh, then he said to them, oh no, is this man standing there? He has no papers and he's working. Can you arrest him? The policeman said to him, if you have any problem with that, contact the immigration. I am here on a criminal purpose. I'm not here to arrest any illegal immigrants.
That day on my way to work, and right in the bus, one of these Irish guy came from behind and slammed the window by my side. I just said, excuse me. And the next thing just went off. Then I turned around and I said, you could have just said a simple excuse me. He just said, you this black monkey. And he went on with all the F words. I looked at him. I was panicking. Each time I talk about it, I feel it. And I just turned to him and I gave it back to him in another language he likes. And the next thing, he tried to rush towards me, sitting down in the bus, and I stood up and I said, you dare it. I'm not in this country to collect social benefit, if that is the word. And I pay you for my own hard working and tax that is being deducted. That was when he now stood back. I don't know when that one came out from me. And he couldn't, and the girlfriend was dragging him. And I said, you dare it. And I stood where I was. Well, to my own happiness, when I came down of the bus, what's coming down, I just kept on saying, I'm happy the camera is in there, and there's going to be a judge in there. So the driver was riding on, and by the time I was stepping there, I thought he was going to come out with me. And the old people, I was the only black in that car, in that bus, and the old people were just other colors, and they all said, we're sorry. I got the accent, I knew they were Irish. Even the driver said, did like that.